Elliot Hart had always believed that the quietest feelings were the most powerful. He lived on the edge of his emotions, always teetering, never bold enough to leap. For years, he'd carried a quiet ache in his chest, one that hummed with the rhythm of a voice that wasn't his. A voice that belonged to Isabel. Isabel Morgan. The girl with the cinnamon freckles and that laugh that made sunlight irrelevant. She'd moved to Ashmere during their sophomore year of college, sitting 2 rows ahead of him in classical literature. She always had a way of making ancient poetry sound like she'd written it herself. Elliot had noticed her long before she ever knew his name. He memorized the curve of her smile when she talked about books, the way her fingers danced when she explained an idea, and how she bit her lip when deep in thought. But she never looked his way. Not in that way. She dated someone else. Then another. And then no one for a long time. But never him. They became friends, good friends, in fact. Coffee after class, walking home in the rain, sharing favorite songs. But he never told her. Not once. He feared the ruin of what they already had. So he watched her live, quietly loving her from the background, while she shone in the spotlight. After graduation, life tugged them in different directions. Isabel moved to Boston to work for a publishing house. Elliot stayed in Ashmere, becoming a high school English teacher. Still, they messaged now and then. She'd send pictures of bookstores or quote poems she knew he loved. He'd respond with his usual dry humor, always careful, always distant. Years passed. Every now and then, she visited. They'd meet, sip coffee like nothing had changed, talk about everything but the thing that mattered. Each time she left, Elliot swore he'd tell her the truth next time. Next time never came. Until one rainy spring evening, she called unexpectedly. "I'm moving back to Ashmere," she said. "Publishing remotely now. I found a place. Want to help me move in?" His heart stuttered, but he answered, "Of course." Elliot helped her unpack boxes filled with old books, tea mugs, and Polaroid photos. She talked about the city, how busy it was, how lonely. How she missed the sound of real rain, not the artificial drizzle of Boston's gray. "You know," she said, handing him a stack of novels, "there's something comforting about coming back to a place where people know who you really are." He didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too busy drowning in the warmth of her nearness. That evening, they sat on her new porch, listening to crickets and wind. "You ever feel like there's something you've left unsaid for so long that it's turned into part of who you are?" she asked. Elliot looked away. "All the time." She smiled faintly. "Me too." Still, he said nothing. And again, she left him with silence. That night, Elliot wrote her a letter. 7 pages, handwritten, telling her everything. How he'd loved her from the moment she quoted Sappho under her breath. How he'd wanted to hold her hand through every heartbreak she'd endured. How he never said a word, fearing he'd ruin her smile. He folded it. Sealed it. But never mailed it. Instead, he tucked it in his copy of Wuthering Heights, the book she once said felt like a storm trapped on paper. One crisp autumn morning, Isabel knocked on his door. She held a bouquet of wild flowers and a nervous smile. "Walk with me?" she asked. They walked to the old bridge where they used to sit during college, legs dangling, laughing about absurd things like immortality and grocery lists. "I found something," she said, reaching into her coat. She pulled out Wuthering Heights, his copy. The letter inside. "I borrowed it when I was looking for something new to read," she said. "Didn't expect to find something so old." Elliot froze. You wrote it years ago, didn't you? He nodded slowly. Yes. She opened the letter, fingered the edge, then met his eyes. Why didn't you ever send it? I thought it was too late, he whispered. That maybe you'd already written me out of your story. She looked down. Then, gently, she slid her fingers into his. You idiot, she said, laughing softly. You were always the story. They didn't kiss immediately. They didn't need to. It wasn't about fireworks or fanfare. It was the slow build of something that had always existed, like a melody finally played after years of silence. Over time, their lives intertwined like vines, quiet, certain, and sure. Isabelle found a rhythm in small-town life. Elliot began writing again. Together, they opened a bookstore cafe called Echo, where stories lived and new ones began. Sometimes, when the rain fell on the tin roof, they would read together. She'd lean her head on his shoulder, and he would smile, silently thanking the years for bringing her back. Not every love burns bright from the beginning. Some flicker quietly in corners of the heart until one day, they are seen. And that makes all the difference.